Folks, back in 2013, we were treated to some trailers of Rome attacking Carthage. Now, we all later learned that those trailers were a little bit exaggerated, to put it mildly, as to what we would get in the game. It took many years of patching, but eventually Rome 2 became a pretty epic entry in the historical scene. Now, for me, it still doesn't quite live up to what I would have wanted from a Rome 2, but it is a solid game. And I used to do a ton of battles on it. It was actually kind of a big heyday in the channel. And so whenever I got an email from Sage and he said, hey, I've got a good 2v2 replay for you in Rome 2, I could not say no. So thank you, Sage, for sending this in. And we are absolutely going to take a look at it. This is going to be a 2v2 settlement defense. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out where you all can kind of see what's being defended. Relatively small wall settlement. Means there's going to be a lot of choke points, there's going to be walls, and the way the walls work in Rome 2, just to recover it for folks, you have this narrow fighting space on top of the walls, and when units come off of the walls, it's not like Warhammer 2, they do have to come out of some narrow choke point type places like this, which is more realistic. I think Warhammer moved that way just because Warhammer isn't really a realistic game, and they were just trying to make the pathfinding a little better. Now, there are two Roman foes that are going to be fighting against Carthage here. One of them is actually a later Roman era that you can still play in multiplayer. So this comes from one of the DLCs. This is a later era. You can tell by these Herculani. So these are the very cool looking. I mean, these guys do got some style here with that segmented armor and the blue shield and kind of like the crown on their head things. Looking pretty great. So the Herculani are going to be the strongest units. There are some cohorts back here, though, which were the standard Roman infantry at the time. At this point, they had adopted the oval shield and more chainmail type armor for the most part. On the other side, we have a legionary era Roman army. This one's going to have a few hastati in it, but for the most part, it's going to be legionary cohorts who are coming in. So these are very solid, heavy infantry. And for those of you less familiar with Rome 2 is definitely geared very, very heavily on heavy sword infantry. It pretty much dominates the game, especially since most all heavy sword infantry, if not all, with the maybe exception of Falx units, which I guess technically aren't swords anyway. Falx units, of course, a little different. But almost all of them carry javelins, and javelins in this game are very powerful. Very powerful against infantry, very powerful against cavalry, especially cavalry, and in particular elephants. Elephants were, though, one of Carthage's really only means of really defeating the Romans in either an open field or any type of battle, because the Romans just have an edge when it comes to armor and offensive capability against Carthage. And to be fair, that's probably pretty representative of what it was like in real life. Hannibal often found himself fighting these uphill battles against a far superior force where he had to employ extremely good tactics in order to turn back the Roman advantages, which were many and significant, not the least of which was that the Romans held a full professional army, and the Carthaginians were simply mercenaries for the most part, with a few Carthaginian citizens fighting. And those mercenaries were only as good as their leadership, which quite often was not good. Which is why we really only saw Hannibal, and occasionally in the past, to a degree, his father, gain much, if any, success against the Romans. Now, that said, this is a fun setup here. The later era Roman player has sent forward a whole bunch of Roman levies who are going to come onto the wall. They're going to take the initial fire, and they're going to discharge their javelins. This is pretty smart. It's a good way for him to eat into the Carthaginian defense. Now, Carthage opted not to play on the walls, but rather to play down from them. This was smart, because all the towers have scorpions and other stuff. It's very painful. There's a mix of Italian swordsmen, Gallic warriors, and Iberian swordsmen, which are all light to medium sword infantry waiting down here. And they should match up nicely against these Roman levy units. And right now they are trading javelins back and forth. Whereas on the other flank, the legionary Roman player used these Portus siege engines here to bust a lot of large holes in the wall, and they have already gained control of the gatehouse and the towers. And for those of you, again, less familiar with Rome 2, when you gain control of the gatehouse and towers, they can actually fire down into the settlement and are really quite effective at causing a lot of long-term damage. Now, the Carthaginians on this flank have some Libyan hoplites. So these are not an Alexandrian-type phalanx, but rather the Greek-type phalanx. And they will be defending, and they're not going to do well against Romans, but they can wear them down. Behind them is Sacred Band. These are the best of the best, the cream of the crop. And we're going to find out whether or not they will die, such as they did in real life, in a less than epic fashion, or whether they will live up more to our expectations of the Sacred Band, which are a bit higher. There are several Cretan archers, and then there are some Libyan swordsmen. So they got some Libyan swords. But yeah, the Cretan archers right now are trading fire into the Roman legionaries, but the Roman legionaries have entered a testudo formation, though this one needs to turn around. They are facing the wrong direction. This will give them quite a bit of cover from the Cretan archers, and there are some auxiliary Syrian heavy archers who are now firing from this commanding position on the walls into the Cretan archers, so the Roman should be able to gain some ranged advantage. And this is a good opportunity for the Romans to kind of chew into the enemy defense, plus the tower is working in their favor. So the Carthaginian is taking some losses on this flank by having sacrificed that gatehouse. However, to be fair, if they had stood their ground and fought at the gatehouse, in a way, you'd kind of be playing into the hands of the Romans. The Carthaginian player is trying to take a longer approach and wear the Romans down, which would absolutely be necessary if they want to have any prayer of winning this, because if I was just guessing things out of the outset here, the Carthaginians are most assuredly the underdogs in this fight, just because of the way that this game is designed and balanced. They possess the less cost-effective heavy swords, and therefore they are the underdog. The calculation is fairly simple in Rome 2. And don't let that mean that this is me bashing on Rome 2. I am absolutely not bashing on this game. I like it. It certainly has flaws, things that I would have liked to have seen fixed. But yeah, it is a good game nonetheless. There are some armored archers here for the late Roman player, and he is using them quite wisely here to fire through the gap into the wall and to take out these African pikes, which are right now being intended for use as some troops to help fill these gaps. I almost kind of think the Carthaginian player should have placed them here behind the wall and waited for the Roman to come in and then attacked the Roman, because right now these units are exposed and this is going to be some painful archer fire. Meanwhile, the Roman player did venture off the wall with his levies, and the levies are being cut down quite easily by the light swordsmen, the Gallics and the Iberians, for the Carthaginian player. So this is some nice play here, waiting for the enemy to come off the walls and then surrounding them because you have them in a choke point. Is well played. Over here, the Carthaginian remains in control of the gatehouse, which is good because, again, this is less arrows that will be fired in their direction. Meanwhile, you can see the Roman legionaries are making an advance on that position, and they're using their testudo to reduce casualties. That is a pretty smart move, and they should be. And they also are approaching the phalanx front here, the Greek phalanx that the Carthaginians have. And we're going to get some pretty cool action here watching these testudo walk up. You can see that the Carthaginians have suspended their missile fire for the moment, and as have the Romans. The Syrians are saving ammunition, probably both factions hoping to conserve some the later in the game. We're going to see the Romans exit testudo and start to immediately hurl their pila here. And the pila, of course, are a heavy javelin that causes intense damage and will really soften up enemies prior to battle. It's one of the big advantages that Roman infantry have. Now, Roman infantry do not hit typically with as much melee damage as, say, barbarian infantry, but what they lack in the melee damage, they make up for with a solid attack, high armor, and high morale. So the Roman infantry has excellent staying power, and against most foes, they will trade extremely well whenever they aren't hit by a high charge, high damage barbarian unit in return. That is really some of their only weaknesses. So against these Carthaginian factions, the Romans will do good against basically every unit, with the sole exception of mercenary fighters, assuming that the mercenary fighters get a good charge against the Roman infantry. So that is pretty much like the one unit that the Carthaginians have that will just kind of heads up win a sword fight. Now over here you can see that the Libyan infantry is trying to set up an outflanking. They are pulling back some of their troops. The Romans over here are trying to get into position, but they're being met on two fronts, and now they are beginning to be surrounded. This was a nice play by the Carthaginian troops here to get this Roman legion surrounded, because otherwise they would lose too early. So this is well played here. You can see here that they kind of fixed, unfixed, retreated, and then did some feints and maneuvering here, and now they've got these Roman legionaries basically caught out. There's another Roman legionary here that's badly needed in combat, but it is taking some heavy damage. That damage is actually coming from a Carthaginian Scorpion unit that is getting some very nice kills. The Testudo doesn't perfectly protect against those larger Scorpion bolts there. All right, now we're going to see the Roman bringing in their cohorts. These are their slightly heavier troops. They're trying to outmaneuver these African pikes, and they managed to do so. Catching the pikes somewhat unaware here. Actually, this is a levy unit, my bad. I think it's a levy unit. Yep. That is a levy unit. They would have had more chainmail armor had it been the actual cohorts unit. I think this Roman player is actually holding most of his heavy infantry. Some of them have climbed onto the walls. In fact, I want to say he had a Herculani up here. No, these are his cohorts. I don't see the Herculani unit yet. They have not entered combat. He's saving them, obviously. The Carthaginian player over here, though, has had a pretty solid engagement. And earlier I mentioned those mercenary noble fighters. This is them. They are here. There's 2 units of them present behind the African pikes. So they're hoping the African pikes will wear the enemy down, maybe draw in some of their missiles, and help to finish them off. So there's a very good use of forces right now by Carthage. The initial wave of Libyan hoplites broke, and now the Sacred Band is holding the Romans, and unfortunately for Greek phalanxes in this game, that's really all they're good for, is dying more slowly to swords. I feel like Greek phalanxes didn't get a very good shake in this game, and they should have been more effective against infantry formations than they were. They actually got quite a bit of bonus versus large because they have spears, but they're a very immobile formation and really don't have any business defending against large, maybe against elephant charges or something like that, but I mean, I feel like the Greek phalanx got a bad rap in Rome 2 and it was never corrected. And so it really didn't serve much of a purpose, like I said, other than dying more slowly. They have very good defensive stats. They have very awful offensive stats, which again ultimately means that they will lose a battle and that their main function is to just last as long as possible before they die. And that is exactly what the Sacred Band is doing here. They'll get a few kills, but nothing super significant. Most of that probably could have been fixed, however, with the Phalanx units if they just would have increased the weapon damage. Most of the Phalanx units just got awful weapon damage, and I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe they could have even tuned down the defensive stats some, and just given them more weapon damage. But essentially their weapon damage is so bad that it can't get through armor. And it makes them very ineffective against heavy swords. But I mean, those big spears, I mean, I don't know about you, but it seems like that would hurt just about as much as it would a gladius being shoved into your abdomen. So I'm not really sure what the weapon damage difference is. Now you can see some Libyan hoplites lined up behind the Sacred Band here. It's because the Carthaginian player is about to relieve those Sacred Band and let the Libyans take the brunt of this, and that is actually a really smart maneuver. The Romans do have some fixed artillery far outside. Probably not the best choice to bring fixed artillery to these battles because it can't move around once the battle has begun. You can see here the Carthaginian player is actually letting the Roman come down, and then they're going to maybe attempt a surrounding, but the Roman has gained some ground here. The African pikes have gotten chewed up pretty good, and so Carthage is having to bring up its mercenary noble fighters. They are discharging their javelins. These are going to be Roman archers that have been sent into combat here. They actually have a spear, the armored archer. So pretty cool unit for dual purpose. And you can see the Roman's still holding on to his heavy infantry outside the walls. So hoping to make best use of them. There are some Balearic slingers now being moved into position here. And Balearic slingers will be quite deadly up at that position. See a few more troops back here. There are some mercenary Cretan archers and other things that could try to counter the slingers. And over here you can see that the Carthaginian maneuvered very adeptly, got their Sacred Band out of combat, and is just basically slowly wearing the Romans down. But the Roman is also playing smart. He has not over-engaged his troops. He's not in one giant melee blob. These guys are going to be held back, and they're going to be fresh. And he is kind of letting his troops fight in waves as well. So this is just a good old-fashioned battle of attrition going on right here. And at the moment, the Roman meat grinder is winning that battle of attrition, though they have suffered some losses, like on this flank, where they were outflanked and destroyed, and then the Roman moved in their hastati, but rather than moving these units immediately into combat, they instead are holding farther back and waiting for the opportunity to outmaneuver the Carthaginians. There are quite a few Roman units still in reserve, See here that they have some, looks like Balearic slingers mixed in with some infantry, and Syrian archers have even more infantry over here. So the Romans are going to be well equipped. I believe these are more, this maybe is, yeah, legionary cohorts. The legionary cohorts still. Lots of legionary cohorts. So you can see the Roman just kind of slowly working their way in. Some African pikes are having to be repositioned from over here where they were guarding another entrance, but the Roman is focusing solely in one direction at the moment. Some of you may think that's crazy, but those African pikes had a really good holding position on the other, and so I think the Roman just decided, hey, whatever, I'll cut through the hoplites and take my chances here, rather than getting into the pikemen. So the late Roman levies were pushed back once again by the combined arms of the Iberian, Gallic, and Italian mercenaries of the Carthaginians. So they pushed back all that light infantry, and over here, though, here comes the big boys. The Herculani have come into combat, and they're going to be a significant force to be reckoned with. Now, they are surrounded, unfortunately for them, by noble fighters. However, these Balearic slingers have some excellent positioning on the fight. You can see up there into the sun, firing down from the walls. They will be able to do some considerable damage to these noble fighters. And then the Romans brought in another unit here, which is a pike unit that's available to the late Romans, and they're going to basically block off the flank of this Herculani unit and allow it to compete. Now, stats-wise, the Herculani have very high attack, as do the noble fighters, and they do pretty good damage, so it's going to be a pretty heavyweight fight. The noble fighters probably have a little less armor and defense. However, they're going to have better damage. Like I said, typically speaking, I don't remember. Yeah, the noble fighters there have a 41 weapon damage, which is quite good. Slightly better than the Herculani. And they have a better charge bonuses too, so when they do hit on the charge, they hit hard on the charge. You can see these Herculani here trying to flee back, actually. The Roman here trying to play smart, not get his best unit outmaneuvered. He's going to let these pikes take some of the damage. And he wants his slingers, obviously, to do some work. However, the Carthaginian made a bold move here, and was able to outmaneuver some of these Herculani on the wall and get some of his Gallic warriors into the Balearic slingers, who now have nowhere to run because this wall was destroyed. And although the Gallic warriors are dying to the much superior Herculani, they are basically stopping these Balearic slingers from having been extremely effective, which this was quite the play. Now that the noble fighters have no charge, the Herculani come charging back in, as do some more armored archers. And they're going to try and fight their way through this choke point. It's going to be a difficult fight, to say the least. So a very brutal fight going on here between Carthage and Rome. And on the other flank, the Libyans have started to falter and fail, but not before they drove back at least those tired Romans. You can see that this has been a bloodbath in the street right here. I mean, an absolute bloodbath. The Sacred Band, however, will be fresh and ready to fight. The Romans, though, have held on to some of their missile component until late game. See, they have some Balearic slingers and Syrian heavy archers. So this could be potentially deadly here. I'm not sure why they're still holding them. Might ought to be firing at some of these troops, but maybe they're just waiting for the best case scenario. And Carthage is doing the same. These guys have their daggers out, so they are out of ammunition, these particular missile units. So it's no surprise they're not firing. Scorpion did some really nice work. It's now turned around. Looks like it's firing in the opposite direction. So the Scorpion making its presence felt on the battlefield. You can see here that the Romans are having a difficult fight of it. These Herculani have pushed in, and they have a fair number of kills at 82, but they're up against more mercenary noble fighters, mercenary Italian swords. Now they're being rear-charged by even more noble fighters, so this unit was not as well supported. It kind of needed its brother unit here to help them, and it just wasn't able to get it. And its brother unit here will chop down these Gallic warriors, but not before the Gallic warriors routed all of those Balearic slingers. So that was an epic win for the Gallic warriors. They're taking those out because that would have been very, very bad for Carthage here. So it looks like Carthage will beat the late Romans here. So the late Romans, hoping that their wave of levies would have given them an advantage, but it just did not work out. They've got even more troops getting up on the walls now. And so it really comes down to the Roman legionary player here. There's now some African pikes supporting the Sacred Band, and this is going to be a pretty deadly combo, and the Romans will run into some pretty significant resistance here. So in the background, you can kind of see the Romans pulling back, and they're going to activate their archers. This is an excellent play. African pikes are very weak to missile fire, And any missile fire that misses will probably also hurt the Sacred Band if it overshoots. So this is a win-win for the Romans. Very smart move here to pull back and not waste his troops, and then just pick these guys off from range. So this could be why they held on to some of that ammunition to make it more deadly late in the game. So you can see the African pikes were going to be decimated rather quickly, and the Sacred Band just cannot hold forever against these Roman legionaries. The Roman legionaries are superior, and they will eventually win. This has been quite the epic brawl here. It does look like Rome holds the advantage, however, and that Carthage is being slowly worn down. Now they will be able to bring the reinforcements who are just now gaining ultimate victory over here. They're actually driving back a Praetorian cavalry attack. This is where the late Roman general, this is the General Bardi's Guard for Carthage sallying out against the artillery. That's right. There is a Praetorian bodyguard, the late Roman, that I believed headed to the other side of the map. These Herculani are still alive, and they will no doubt cut through these Gallic warriors. But this is a nice holding maneuver for the Gallic warriors. Herculani are lucky that Carthage didn't recapture this tower before leaving, or else they would have been shot in the back and not able to do anything about it. But you can see that the Carthaginian player from this flank is now reassigning his forces towards the other side of the battle, because they will be needed. In fact, you can see the mercenary noble fighters moving that way. Now, mercenary noble fighters will typically do well against Roman troops, but these Roman troops, some of them are well rested, and there are a lot of them. So if we take a look, there's a couple of pretty fresh Roman legionaries here. This one's fighting. We've got some more fresh troops back here in the back. We've got a Hastati and another legionary, and you've got more Hastati here, and then more Hastati here. So, I mean, there are a lot of Roman troops left, enough to win the battle, in my opinion. So the Carthaginians are going to have to pull a rabbit out of their hat and really play well. This is nice, though, where they were able to surround this unit and do some damage. However, the Romans came to assist it rather than leave it there, and they're now going to commit more of their troops into battle. Carthaginians did have some Cretan archers left with ammunition from the other side of the fight. I believe they're a little farther back here. They just put a flaming volley in. But it looks like they're all running out of ammunition. So, very little ammunition left. So, the Romans hold the upper hand. Their Praetorian bodyguard charges through the gates, looking to go make an outflanking maneuver, and finds a rather unpleasant Carthaginian surprise hiding around the corner that the Romans had yet seen, and it is a unit of heavy African war elephants. It has been held in reserve, hoping that the Romans would have fewer forces to face it. So the Praetorian cavalry, who thought that it was going to come in and put in an epic coup de grace, actually finds itself overmatched and in some serious trouble, and the Romans have just learned that the Carthaginians may indeed not have a rabbit up their hat, but they may have an elephant up their hat. This is their only hope at this point, are those elephants, and I've specifically held off from showing them to you because I wanted you to get to witness just how epic this battle is. Now, I'm not telling you who wins. The Carthaginians may not win. The Romans have significant forces left, and they even have missile troops who can deal with the elephants, and they also have towers in the background who can also help deal with elephants. So the fight is not over, but the presence of the elephants does give Carthage a fighting chance, and if used properly, the elephants could potentially turn the tide of this battle. See the Romans still playing rather smart, keeping troops in reserve and being smart with their troops, and I like this. See the Praetorian cavalry moved away from those elephants and is now coming back to focus in this direction. I think the Romans are hoping to grind out more of this Carthaginian infantry. You can see the missiles being used on the African pikes. It is a very smart move indeed. Mercenary noble fighters have been brought in, and they are working to outflank and destroy Roman cohorts, along with some of the other units who were in the area to support. I believe some of these are Gallic and even some Italian swordsmen. Yep, here. I can see by their design. So the Romans are fighting, and they are fighting well. Here comes the, I can't remember if this is the Praetorian or the bodyguard. Yeah, this is the Praetorian cavalry from the late Roman coming in. I'm surprised these guys aren't busy stabbing someone in the back, since that's pretty much all the Praetorians did in real life. The Carthaginian elephants are making their move now, and they're going to come down this main corridor. Now, they will face flaming arrow fire from these towers. So there is a huge risk that the towers can not only kill elephants, but berserk this unit before it ever even gets into combat. So Carthage is rolling the dice here, folks. Big time rolling the dice. But they knew they needed to get in behind the Roman missile units, and you can see that they actually have their daggers out for the most part here as well, which means that they are out of ammunition, so the patience could potentially pay off. However, some of the Roman infantry units still possess pila, and pila can also quickly deal terrible damage to elephants. Fortunately for the Carthaginians, their elephants have not yet berserked, and they are at least going to get a single charge here. The Romans, I guess, haven't seen them coming or didn't react quick enough, and these Hastati are not going to get turned in time to launch a pila volley if they did have one. So the elephant charge has begun, and the elephants are going to come in with a vengeance, and it is just in time because Carthage is really on its last legs here in terms of the infantry fight. They are losing nearly everywhere, and these Herculani are threatening from the walls over here as well to capture and cause even more damage. So this is Carthage's last and desperate attempt. The elephants did just take a pila volley from those Hastati. It berserked them. I'm letting you all see that they're now running amok. However, when running amok, they turned around and immediately clobbered the Hastati before they were able to throw more pila. And more pila likely would have destroyed these elephants. The other downside for the Roman is I do believe the Hastati carry a lighter version of the pila. I could be wrong. Damage may be the same as the heavier troops, but I believe that there are different damage levels. So the elephants did run amok. They destroyed the Hastati, and then they're actually going to, even despite the tower fire, be able to come back under player control. Like I said, the Romans are wrapping up the rest of the Carthaginian defenders here. They're almost all dead. Praetorian cavalry is assisting in doing this. The Herculani are threatening from the walls. So the Romans pretty much have this battle wrapped up, but now they have a major problem. These elephants are just running roughshod all over their troops. And unless they have some pila volleys left, which again, the Carthaginian player waited till late in the game, probably for this exact reason. These elephants can be so easily countered early. And now you are seeing some major issues develop here for the Roman player. Look at the kills on the elephants already. Get this up here. That is 427 kills, and it's climbing rapidly. And all these fresh Roman troops are now being trampled and destroyed. Like I said, elephants are a very high-risk, high-reward unit in Rome 2, and they were always difficult to use, especially in an open field battle, because it was difficult to hold them in reserve. The enemy could see them. They could harass them, attack them with skirmishing and other methods, skirmisher cavalry. In the town where they were hidden and held till late, this actually became a huge strategic advantage. And here it is currently turning the tide of the battle. If the Romans can't do something about these elephants quickly, they will lose. They've already lost almost all of their forces in this vicinity, and you can see the mercenary noble fighters going in to clean up those that remain. So Carthage took this, what was about to be a defeat, and they're going to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. The only units really remaining at this point are the Herculani, and you can see that some of them are quite tired, hands on their hips. I like how the Herculani control that, so the fleeing Gauls got burned with hot oil on the way out for their trouble. These Herculani are going to be brought forward, but at this point, the Roman army has been absolutely and utterly shattered by the African elephants. Remember, the elephants do morale damage, and they also do tremendous melee damage, so they are doubly difficult to stop unless you have the right tools. Now, they are extremely easy to stop when you have the right tools, which is javelins and flaming arrows, missile fire of any type. So elephants, very, very easy to stop. However, once you've lost those tools, they are very, very difficult to stop. So like I said, this was a perfect storm for Carthage to make a comeback, and these last remaining Herculani begin to flee right as they are being charged by the elephants, resulting in a costly and very, very narrow victory here for Carthage. A Pyrrhic victory indeed, as all sides took tremendous losses to their troops in an epic throwdown battle on Total War Rome 2, which I hope you'll enjoy. This one is really a blast from the past and a lot of fun. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed this one. Those elephants clutched this out. So 13 here, which I'm assuming is Sage who emailed this to me. That was really an epic comeback by those elephants. Actually really well done by the Carthaginian Scorpion here too, with 150 kills. And pretty good work from these archers, especially this unit. You can see, though, that the Carthaginian infantry was mostly outmatched, though these Libyan infantry did get some nice kills. And the Sacred Band held for a long time. Like I said, unfortunately for these units, that's about all they can do. And from Hicks, the other Carthaginian player here, very nice work with his Cretan archers. None of them gained a chevron, though, so I have to assume that these guys were firing into that Roman levy. And although they got a lot of kills, it probably wasn't worth a terribly large amount in terms of experience points. The mercenary noble fighters were huge. They ended up fighting until the very end, though they would have been overwhelmed and defeated by the Roman legionaries had it not been for that late elephant charge that came in to mop it up. I love seeing the combined arms of the Italians, Iberians, and Gallic warriors being used well in close quarters fighting. The Iberians have a large number of javelins. This makes them an obvious pick. They threw their javelins and weakened the levies on the walls and helped get them ready to be defeated. I actually really like this older style of unit card better than this newer one. I'm curious which one you all like better. But Abele here was the late period Roman player. His Praetorian cavalry got a fair number of kills. And then some of his units did well. His cohorts got quite a few kills. And his Herculani both picked up a chevron because they killed some pretty expensive units. And one of them was still in good health with 206 kills. This is the one that was on the wall. However, it just routed in the face of those elephants. So the later Roman player essentially got worn out by attrition. Now, his legionary Roman teammate here was really grinding it out. These legionaries, and remember that some of these still had a significant portion of their unit left late in that battle until the elephants stomped them. And honestly, this is the type of Roman army that I would have expected in this battle, which is just a lot of heavy swords, and you basically bury your opponent in superior Roman heavy swords. Downside is that because the Carthaginian player was able to hide those elephants behind buildings and keep them invisible to the Romans, these archers and Balearic slingers were not able to be brought to bear, and then all the javelins had been used on the infantry. So this was some very crafty, and as it turns out, very game-changing play by the Carthaginian player to hold on to those elephants for late and clutch it out. So an epic battle from an epic game from a different time. Hope you all enjoyed it. It was a nice throwback, a good way to spend your Sunday, I hope. And I will have more content coming for you all this next week. I'm going to be starting up a Chaos Gate playthrough. I've been looking forward to playing that one. I'm going to continue the Warhammer 3 campaigns in Satsuma, and I'm going to be mixing in some Chaos Gate. I really want to play some Surviving Mars, too. There's some new content there I want to check out. So we'll be doing that. If you all have any epic replays you want to send in on any Total War games, feel free. You can email it to me at airtotalwar, which is what Sage did with this one, airtotalwar@gmail.com. Or you can join my Discord, the link of which will be below. And we have replay submittal areas there that you can do as well and upload them there. So thank you, appreciate it. From the players, HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I'll see you all soon with some more action in Total War. Well, maybe not Rome 2, but maybe so. We'll see you then. HeirofCarthage signing out.